Welcome to Economics Happy Hour. My name's Matt,
And my name is Jadrian.
and we are excited to be with you on Thursday, February 27th, even though we're recording this 1 week beforehand. Your semester, little bit of the way before your spring break.
Mhm.
What's exciting in the classes that you're teaching right now?
Ooh. Um, okay, so lots of exciting stuff. So over the listeners, I'll say at least the most recent listeners, know that I'm teaching urban economics. So we are covering some really fun stuff, and I think this is one of those I think weird moments where there's sometimes where you will describe a class to somebody and you could sort of see their face glaze over, where they're like, that doesn't sound as interesting as you think it does.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, that doesn't happen. Like economics of crime, that doesn't happen. Everybody is super excited to talk about economics of crime. Urban economics, when I explain what it is, you can see the sort of glaze where people are like, Chandra, that doesn't sound as interesting as you think it does.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm getting the opposite. My students they seem like really engaged with it. Like we'll
That's
talk.
cool.
So just the last class, we talked about patent location. So like patents per person, it's per
Yeah.
1,000. But essentially like patents cluster around Silicon Valley, the Research Triangle in North Carolina, Austin. And they're like so tuned in that we had this map of all the patents per person across all the counties. And like they're actually asking really good questions. They're like, why does New York not have like a darker color? Why do they not have a lot of patents?
Hmm.
And so we got to talk about a little bit of it as, population size makes that worse, but that they specialize in things like finance and services and publishing that isn't necessarily like a patent driven
Sure, sure.
industry. So like they're like you can
Yeah.
see them like really engaged. Love it. That's my favorite part of every class.
Interesting. That's fun. That's fun. Yeah, I had I mean, I'm not teaching this term, as our regular listeners know, but I did have an interesting, pretty powerful session Saturday. I was in Pittsburgh with the Foundation for Economic Education, fee, and the topic was basically on like essentially it was on what's happening in Venezuela and like the economics on Venezuela and command economies and what's been going on there. And so that was actually pretty powerful to see. We got to see somebody who was the mayor of one of the municipalities of Caracas. I guess I learned
Oh,
something new. There's
interesting.
like five subdivisions, but he had
Okay.
to flee. And it was a really powerful day. And I got to present a little bit on, I did the teaching about capitalism and communism using pop culture, which was kind of fun. And I actually had to kind of create some new clips, but I knew where they would be, but I
Yeah.
hadn't created them yet. But it was I think mine was the more fun. The others were the sobering, serious talks. And then I come in and, which in many ways made it, I think, a better day for the teachers, right? It's, hit with the serious stuff, and then I come in and we just goof off and watch clips for an hour and then other things. But
I like
what
it.
uh, what's the beverage of choice for today?
Listen, we're digging into the fridge. I pushed aside all of the stouts and porters because that's what I went with last time. I went with instead volcano sauce.
What a great name.
Have you ever had this? It's
I
very
don't
good.
think
I've
I
actually had this one before. The Aslan Beer Company out of Alexandria, Virginia. Volcano sauce is a sour ale brewed with blackberries, blueberries, milk sugar, and vanilla.
I know I've had something from that brewery. I don't think I've had that one. I was not feeling in the mood yet for alcohol, so I'm going with the standby Free Wave Athletic Hazy IPA. So I'm guessing I've had an IPA from that brewery, but I don't think I've had. That is a cool name.
Yeah. No, it's a good beer too. It's the right sort of, I always like to joke. I have a clear glass I can show you. I always joke that this is my
Oh wow.
favorite color of beer.
Yeah.
If I can get like a real deep pink, then I know it's going to be a really good sour. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. Well,
Cheers,
cheers.
Matt. I do want
And
to
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go.
Well, I was just going to start up with our topic here for today.
Oh, I was gonna pause before the time, so I'm glad I interrupted you then. I want to give a shout out. I have a special shirt on to one of my other content creating friends like us. His name is Barry. I don't know if you've ever heard of Sandwiches of History. Have you ever seen his stuff?
Yes.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, because if not, I think you would love Sandwiches of History. It is so much fun. So anybody who has never heard of it, Barry every day goes and makes a sandwich from history, or maybe like a recent history or an international sandwich.
Yeah.
But it is so fun to see these sandwiches from like 1914, and they're like, here's mayonnaise and pickles and a slice of fish. And he eats it. And God bless him, because I some of the stuff he makes, I don't know how he does it. So I put the shirt on today for our fellow content creators.
I've watched some Food Network from time to time,
Mhm.
and there are certain jobs I look at and realize I could never do that. And being a Food Network person, you you don't get to not like certain things, right? I mean, if you're a chef, you kind of have to know how to taste whether mushrooms go in something or whatever
Yeah.
it is. So good for yeah, being able to eat some of those sandwiches. No, I would,
He's
that'd be
a,
a pass.
he eats some of them and throws them away immediately. Like I would actually argue he's a very good economist in the sense that he'll take a bite and he'll go, "Nope, there's no saving this. We're throwing this away."
I like it. I like it. So this is coming out February 27th. I don't know when the first spring breaks are starting across the country for the US, but I know Susquehanna's will be starting tomorrow for those who are listening on the day that this drops. It starts on basically Saturday, March 1st is the first day off for spring break, along with Duquesne and hundreds of other schools across the United States. Many more, including Virginia Tech, is the week after.
We're the week
Virginia,
after.
we're the week
Yep.
after. And then throughout March and April. And we have never talked about an economic analysis of spring break before.
Which I'm really surprised. I searched through the Substack. We've mentioned spring break first. We've mentioned things like next week is spring break. We have stuff to do. I'm
Yes,
actually surprised that we have never really talked about this.
it is unlike us, but it's kind of fascinating. And our grand total planning on this was just deciding the topic approximately 90 seconds before we hit record and started today's episode. So we could be coming at this from wildly different perspectives. And I'm still trying to figure out what are the things to bring up on the economics of spring break.
Well, so we can also say that if you're listening to this and you don't like this topic, we would like to remind you that we have asked for your input and we have asked for topic ideas. So if you do
Yeah.
not want to hear about the economics of break, please keep listening so it records you as a listener. And then tell us what you want us to talk about. We'll
Yes.
talk about what you want. Otherwise, Matt and I just make stuff up 90 seconds before we click record.
That is usually true. Every now and then there's a text 2 days ahead of time and saying, "Hey, what about the penny?"
Hey,
Like the
I'll
last
take it.
episode. And so when you think about economics of spring break, what's one of the first things that comes to your mind?
Easy. Well, I'm glad you asked that question because my questions were really boring.
Okay.
Externalities. It's
Yeah.
always externalities.
So,
I, I don't. This might be. I don't. I mean, actually, maybe let's back up for a second. Maybe before we jump into external, I'm happy to talk about externalities.
okay.
I've only worked at state schools. I went to a regional state school for my undergrad. I went
Hmm.
to a flagship, not the flagship, but one of the major universities in Washington, the flagship university in Pennsylvania, one of the
Okay.
major public universities in Virginia. I only know the stereotypical experience for my students going on spring break. And I know they don't all do that, but there
Yeah.
is this sort of culture of spring break. Does that happen at liberal arts colleges? Do y'all have that? Are like the students that also like we're going to Cancun? Like, is that a thing?
I don't think it's quite as much. Certainly, there's a few students here and there that are going on things. I know
Mhm.
occasionally you'll hear of a couple students going on a cruise or going somewhere, but the trips that go to like Cancun and things,
Yeah.
I don't recall hearing of any student who's gone to Mexico over spring break ever. I'm sure some have, and some might have even told me over the past 20
Right.
years. I just don't recall that. I know I have a couple advisees I work with closely, and I'm still doing some work with them this semester who are, they're going to Nashville for a few days.
Okay.
So there'll be students who do things like that, but it doesn't seem to be as big of a culture. I don't know if it's because a third of our student body are student athletes, and if you're a student
Hmm.
athlete in the
Oh, that's good.
spring,
Yeah,
you're not getting, you don't get to get away
that's
for
interesting.
spring break.
Yeah, I think
Or actually,
I've
you
just
might get away, but it's with the team. So
It's I've just been at state school, so like just even hearing students talk, like because I'll hear them talk before class about, what are your spring break plans?
yeah.
And it's we're going for a week to Cancun, to Miami, to New Orleans, and I'm like, so going back to when you asked me what's my first thing that I think of externalities because you have and again, this is going to be the very stereotypical answer. You have a lot of young people consuming a lot of alcohol in one
No.
location. And generally, when young people consume a lot of alcohol in one location, they are not being the most pleasant people. They are causing excessive amounts of externalities. They are putting external costs on other people in terms of cleanup, disruption, traffic jams, noise. That's the public. I'm going to call that the public school experience when I think about spring break.
So that could be. And then the flip side, part of why you would go to a spring break, though, if you're a spring breaker, is you assume others are going and you want to experience the positive externality of having, you know, 2,000 other young people
Yeah.
going to
Agglomeration effect. This is like my urban class.
Cancun or to wherever in Florida people go for their spring break trips.
Right.
And
It's absolute, and I think yes, the positive externality side is definitely true, right? Like that's where they're going. It's way more. I should say, I've never done this. I've never gone on a week-long trip. I imagine that if you enjoy spending a week in a sunny location with other people the same age, drinking and
mhm.
listening to loud music, I can imagine. I've never done it, but I can imagine that that is fun.
I had a couple trips to Mexico over spring
I,
break. Actually, one is a high school senior. I
Maybe we
still
should have
cannot
started
believe
with
my
this. Is what's your crazy spring break story? Where
I
have you
still
been?
can't believe my parents let me as a 17-year-old fly to Mazatlan with a friend. I mean, this was pre-cell phone era. Like my mom was like, "Hey, well, I'll be back at the airport in a week."
Just don't bring
And
drugs back. That's
we and then I went a couple times over college. I don't know that it was that crazy. You're
um,
there, you're enjoying some beverages, you're going out to places, you're at the beach during the day, try not to get too sunburned and it's just but it was a lot of fun. But
I mean, for
uh
I don't think I ever. I didn't. I have done. I think I did a cruise in high school, like with my family.
yeah.
I think even through college and like grad school and stuff, my spring breaks, I was just so nerdy and overworked and burned out. My spring breaks were this is a week off. And I would go back home and I would work at the restaurant that I worked at a Mexican restaurant. I'd go work for a week and make a couple $100 and then go right back to school.
Yeah,
But it was my chance to sort of I needed a break, but I didn't want a party break. I was never
sure.
in that circle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was I don't know, it's a fun time, but the it, I could see I don't know on the negative externalities. I don't know. We were probably horribly obnoxious, but because I was obnoxious, I just didn't know, I didn't realize it. But those places certainly cater, right? They get the business from this and make their livelihood from that.
Mhm.
If you are living near a club in Cancun, Mexico, and you don't like music, yes, in many ways, I think that's probably on you. But I do imagine it has to be pretty bad in some areas of the country around spring break time.
Well, did you hear what I haven't checked to see if Miami's doing it again this year. Did you hear what Miami did last year for spring break? I could tell you about it if not.
Please tell me.
So Miami last year, they were fed up. I say Miami as though right, like it speaks for the whole city. I think it was the city planners or city council or something. Essentially said that they were fed up with spring breakers. They actually put a PSA public service announcement out that said, "We do not want you here. Like, please do not come to Miami for spring break. It's not. We don't want you." Beyond the the public service announcement, what they actually implemented a bunch of different rules to try to like knock out people going. So one
Hmm.
of them was so there's they did some like since you talked about capitalism and communism earlier, this is I think a good chance to weave this in. They did a bunch of things like restricting access to beaches after a certain time. Like, they said, oh, you have to be you can't be at the beach too early, you can't be at the beach too late, stuff like that. But then they also did things where they charged like the parking garages, they charged, I think it was like $100 an hour or something like that. Or no,
Wow.
$100 a day. No in and out privileges. Like they basically just jacked up all the prices in all of the parking garages around town. They made sure that they had public announcements that they would be doing traffic stop, like the breathalyzer traffic stop type things. I forget what those are called. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like where they
Yeah, yeah. Random checkpoints
Yeah,
for.
random checkpoints that they would be doing like random checkpoints all over the city, like the entire month of March. They were just doing all these sort of
Yeah.
changing behavior to try to basically get people not to come.
Yeah. If I've got to imagine, I've seen some of the videos in Florida, looks actually worse than any place I've ever gone in terms of that. I don't know if it's because it's in the US, it's easier to just drive to or get to, and
Mhm.
things get overrun. I'm not sure if that's the case. So the externalities, right? The side effects from people behaving badly, perhaps beer cans littered everywhere or trash littered everywhere, the loud noise that might be happening as people are going by. Externalities are something that thing that I thought about initially, and there's all the controversy over how much is there and how to measure it, but
Mhm.
comes to what is the economic impact on some of
I
these areas.
That was the question I was going to have for you next.
Yeah.
Is again, I know the Miami story, and the Miami story was essentially as a city, this does not really generate economic impact. Their argument was yes, people are coming into the city, but that they are largely so they're arguing again, I'm gonna parrot the city of Miami who said it was not
Sure.
an economic impact, right? So you
Yeah.
can fight me on it, and I hope you do. Their argument was when these young people come here, they are not staying in hotels, they're staying in Airbnbs. And what they're doing is they're cramming a ton of people into an Airbnb to try to make it as cheaply as possible per person. They're spending their money not sort of in the economy, but they're spending it on booze. Like, they were unhappy about that.
Okay.
That local residents during heavy spring break periods are leaving the city because they don't want to be in the city while all these drunk people are here. So they're leaving. Other tourists who might stay at a hotel or stay for an entire week, they go, I'm not going to Miami this weekend. So
Sure.
their argument was essentially they're not really spending money. They're trying to spend all their time on the beach. They're not going to museums and they're not going out to nice restaurants. They're trying to get a cheap vacation on the beach and that's not the sort of tourists that they
It's
want.
not going to provide a huge impact. I mean, I could see some of that, and I would certainly think some people would leave. I would think the money going to an Airbnb is still,
I mean, it
that's
definitely
an
has an impact
impact
to
to
some, to
whoever's
whoever's
getting the
renting it.
money.
Yeah, exactly.
The so I would think Miami might be less impacted than most areas, largely because Miami has just got such
So
a
big.
flourishing economy anyway, and the number of people going to Miami compared to the economy as a whole wouldn't be that dramatic. I would think it's absolutely enormous for perhaps some of the smaller towns in Florida, and
Mhm.
you could look up, there are some economic impact reports. I also think it would be enormous for some of the spring break locales like places in Mexico or
I was going to ask, what about Cancun, right? But
oh,
Cancun's pretty
it's
big.
thriving, and I mean that a lot of business for spring break time.
Yeah.
How can you not have? I mean, plenty of people will go to Cancun all throughout the year,
Yeah.
but would it the business would be thriving there?
Yeah.
How much? What you say makes sense though. Whatever economic impact study, I don't know if there's a spring break industry like a
I think
spring
there is.
break chamber who's advocating for everybody's spring break needs. I wouldn't think there is. That will put out an economic impact study that would almost certainly be inflated, right? If spring breakers are coming in, that's fewer rooms for other people, but
All right,
And
here's according to US Travel, the economic impact of travel on the US economy in 2023 for spring break contributed $1.3 trillion in spending.
that's a joke. That
That's the
so
whole US is what it said.
well, and contributing to the U.S. economy, this
Oh,
is the
yep.
worst part about spring break because it's Americans
This,
spending money in America in one way versus the other, which means the net impact on America is zero or even negative if we're going to Mexico instead of the
so,
U.S. So,
so when who did you asked, do you think that there was a company or an industry like what how did you phrase that? Like is there you had phrased like is
is
there
there
a
a
I can tell you who
like
it is. That's why I
public
want you to
interest,
ask the
not
question.
public interest group or a special interest group, like there's the NRA or
Yes.
Planned Parenthood? Is there the Spring Breakers Association, right?
The US Chamber of Commerce.
The Chamber of Commerce, that's who's
That's
putting this out.
yes.
Okay. The amount of economic activity by spring breakers could total 1.3 trillion, perhaps, with a
Uh,
multiplier,
Here you
maybe.
go. Here's your you ready for your inputs? American Airlines. The airlines are getting more travelers than they would normally.
Sure.
Tr cruises are a hot ticket
Yep.
item. So people going on
Hotels,
cruises, hotels.
restaurants,
Uh,
definitely alcohol.
Hotels across the United States have seen a 7% increase in bookings for this year's spring break. That figure is expected to climb
Yeah.
10 to 15%. But that's also what they're doing is right, comparing it to sort of not post-COVID, but there was those sort of
Yeah.
years even right after COVID, right? That people were still slowing down. Yeah, it's their answer is it contributed $1.3 trillion in spending and 2.8 trillion in economic output for the year.
Total joke. So it could have that much in spending,
Absolutely.
but it
But
doesn't
yeah,
mean
give it back. Let's go. Let's go,
it's
Matt.
not an economic impact then. Unless
Tell the listeners why.
Yeah, unless people are spending money in America that wouldn't have otherwise been spent. And
Yes.
it's pretty unrealistic to think that the spring breaker wouldn't have spent their money somewhere else.
You're taking money out of Philadelphia and you're moving that money down to Miami.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
I think so. JC Bradbury has the my favorite quote of all time when it comes to this sort of economic spending. He
Sure.
goes, "It's taking money out of your left pocket and putting it in your right pocket and saying,
Yeah,
look how much money I have in my right pocket."
yeah. So the national economic impact of spring break to the country is probably negative because of people who leave the country, who may not have otherwise left the country.
Because I mean, I don't, this, maybe you know better than me. I don't know. I don't think other countries, they don't do this, right? They don't
I
have
don't think
like a,
that's
they don't have like a spring break culture.
well, they
Like,
certainly don't come to America to
I guess
to
that's just
party
the
like
can.
we go
Yeah,
elsewhere.
it's really Canada. That's the one I probably should ask, right? Because I don't like the European system is very different for education. Canada's probably the closest to ours, but even then, theirs is very different. Like they're not really
Yeah.
an American education is just very different than other places.
Yeah, I guess how could I be wrong and there really is an impact? The closest way would be if a whole bunch of Canadians are coming down to the US to party. But
That's not
it,
gonna
it
happen
does
this
raise
year.
an interesting question if it is positive to Florida, which I think there's a net positive. How big is it? I have no idea, but I believe I think it's a net positive. That means it is a net negative in Pennsylvania and Virginia, right? Uh, if people are spending their money in Florida, they're not spending as much in Blacksburg.
This town, it dies in spring. Yeah, I guess so. Selinsgrove is probably similar, where that one week you're just like, what? Where's everybody at?
Yeah, when the students are out, it definitely gets pretty quiet. Although I think the effect is a little bit more dramatic when there's the 50,000 students and a lot living off campus, like what you see in Blacksburg or.
So, Matt, I don't know that this is necessarily an economic question, but maybe I'm just interested, and I'm gonna pick on you for your age. So we'll call you the senior scholar in this example.
There, okay, I like it.
I mean, as far as I can tell, I think the idea of spring break, this sort of going
Hmm.
long trips and stuff, has that changed like from 20 years ago when you like was that the same? I wasn't in this space, so like I didn't do it. I know that those trips existed, but I seem to remember when I was an undergrad that the spring break trips, and this could have been where I was at in Texas, the spring break trips were to New Orleans, which was 5 hours away, and they were to South Padre Island, which was kind of 5 hours the other direction.
Yeah.
There was really nobody like going to Florida, going to going to Cancun. I think like in the movies, I think I saw like these things, but
Sure.
I don't remember my friends do. I don't remember people at my school doing that.
I know. Well, I mean, I was at South Dakota for undergrad. So I had some friends who chose to go into a van and drive 24 hours straight to go to Florida for spring
Okay,
break. I had
interesting.
other friends who decided to skip a week of school to go down to Mardi Gras for a week too. So I don't
Well,
just
so this
hop
is
in
where I
the
was
car
going.
and go.
What is it about? I mean, again, maybe this is the nerdy side of me. What is it about Florida? Okay, listen. Let me back up. I know that the answer is warm weather, so I definitely I understand it's beaches, warm
Yeah.
weather. Yes, I understand that. I don't hear my students talk about it's spring break. I'm going to go to Europe for a week. It's spring break. I'm going to take a road trip across the country. I mean, I guess now you have students who are going to Nashville, so that's a little different. I
Yeah.
don't hear about students who are like, I'm going to go to DC for a week and explore. What
I don't hear of it going for a week. I have heard more of, oh, I'm going to go into the city for a few days or
few days? Okay,
something. And it doesn't really seem like a spring break party trip, but it's
just
vacation and
it's
spring
a
break
vacation,
and
right?
they're going to spend their time there. I don't know how, why did I do it this way? I don't know if it's
Is there an
similar.
economic answer for this sort of clustering of? I don't have a good answer. Maybe I should ask
Yeah.
ChatGPT this.
We just thought it would be, I know back in the day, we just thought it would be fun.
We Okay, so you've taken your kids on spring break trips. Yeah, probably somewhere. Not to Florida and Cancun, but they've had
Have
spring
I?
break at school and y'all gone somewhere or no?
I don't think so. I don't think the spring breaks didn't line up with Susquehanna's. So
Okay.
their spring breaks and ours, when they were little, we might have pulled them out of school. Yeah, I guess when they were little, we pulled them during my spring break and went to Disney one year because they were young and we're like, whatever, it's a week of school and they won't miss it.
So I actually have one. I have another because this is about to happen to me next week. So I might as well bring it up on the podcast now. I know some of my students are listening, so they can hear me complain about it now. You asked me what economic concept comes to mind when I think about spring break. I give you the answer as a spring break as an idea. Let me give you my answer as a spring break for academics, and
Yes.
that is backward induction because. All my teacher friends are going to know that. All the teachers out here know
I
this.
know exactly where you're
You know
going with
exactly where
this.
this is going. All the teachers know this problem. Matt, when you taught in the spring, do you have class on the Friday before spring break?
I might, but I know what would happen. I would always call it, I don't think it's just spring break. I would call it the rule of a break.
Yes. That's to be fair, that's any break. Yes. So, I mean, we have a whole week off for Thanksgiving. So, this is the Friday before Thanksgiving. So, our friends who are listening who do not know the conversation Matt and I are about to have, it is perhaps one of the most frustrating things. Actually, maybe we should pin that down. Maybe we should talk on an episode of just like what dumb thing frustrates us about teaching. This is going to be on there. The Friday before spring break, I teach at 1:30 in the afternoon is going to be the least attended day that I will ever have on campus. There is not a single day that will be less attended than the
Yeah.
Friday before spring break. And so you and I think anybody knows why, right? Oh, spring break's the next week. I'm gonna leave before instead.
Let me
And
leave a
so
few hours early or
I'm
the
gonna leave a
night
little early.
before
Let me
or the Wednesday before, night
and
before.
and this is the backwards induction. So if I can, and this has happened before, I've had to cancel that Friday before because I've had to go for a conference. And largely, a lot of professors cancel the Friday before spring break. And what ends up happening is that whenever the Friday professors cancel the day before spring break, all of a sudden now the Thursday professors are the ones that are requiring the last day of break.
Yeah.
And the students go and they go to their Thursday professors and they go, but I don't have class on Friday. I'm going to leave a little early on Thursday. And then often what happens is the Thursday professors will also cancel the Thursday before spring break. And I have had, as a Monday, Wednesday, Friday instructor, I have had students come to me on Wednesday. To be fair, I canceled class on Friday, so I'm guilty.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
they have come to me on Wednesday and said, well, you don't have class on Friday, and my teachers on Thursday are canceling. I'm not going to be here on Wednesday. I'm going to leave instead. And I lose it every semester when that happens because I'm just like, I don't care. I'm already canceling Friday. Backwards induction is like
Yeah.
it just keeps going. Somebody has to stop it.
Yeah, we see that we have a fall break that's only 4 days, but people want to leave early. Our Thanksgiving break is not the full week in
Okay.
Susquehanna. It's the Monday, Tuesday, but
But
people will
yeah,
want to skip those, and some do. And spring break is same thing. The spring
do
break
you
people would like to leave and so I always just thought if it's the rule of any break, whatever day the break starts, students will want to be out
ex
earlier.
except Labor Day? I don't get that for Labor Day because it's the
Okay.
first week. It's only like the first week of class.
We don't have Labor Day off.
Y'all teach on Labor Day?
Yeah, yep.
Oh wow.
They
Maybe
figure we
that
had
should
the
be a
whole
whole separate.
summer. They figured
That's
we had the
crazy.
whole summer, so
Oh
there's no
wait,
Labor Day, no President's
do you
Day.
start after Labor Day?
No, we start the week
Oh,
before. So it's usually the
that's
second Monday of
crazy.
the semester.
Yeah, so we get Labor Day off, but no students don't. They're not bold enough to ask
For a
for an
day
extra
off then.
for a day off then. So I'm curious.
No,
Dean
speaking
Rose.
of,
Oh,
oh,
go
go ahead,
ahead.
go ahead. Well,
Go.
speaking of externalities, as we talked
Okay.
about, um, what I know that there are some professors who will get very upset at the other professors who choose to cancel the class because then it's making them the bad guys because they
Yes.
want to do it. And this is especially prominent over the Thanksgiving break at
Yeah.
Susquehanna because
Yep.
some people are like, and I know there's some professors who are like, I don't care, it's test time.
That was my question. So good. I'm glad you asked this. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, and so it's
Oh,
just an
oh.
interesting thing. And as a dean, I'm like, every professor has the freedom to run their class the way they
Oh.
want. I'm staying out of it. So,
Here's what I was going to ask you, Dean Rose. So, okay, so you're the Sigmund Weiss School of Business official policy is it's your class, do what you want. So my undergrad actually was the same as Susquehanna. We only got off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We had class Monday and Tuesday, and incredibly unpopular. I didn't care. I only lived like an hour and a half away.
yep.
I didn't need to go home early. I I remember this, and this might be age. Maybe I'm not remembering it correctly, but I'm pretty sure that my professors, almost all of them, when I got to upper level classes, we had quizzes and exams on those days, and like almost all of my classes did. It wasn't just one.
Yeah.
And they told us that the College of Business policy was that if possible, if it fit in your timeline, to please hold a quiz or do something on that day. So that, but they did it as sort of a collective thing. They said if we
Yeah.
all give assignments, we all can't be the bad guy. If
Yeah.
we all agree to work together, we can keep them here and you won't individually get in trouble. And so
Yep.
that was basic the way that we said it, the way our school was, it was essentially that was your last exam, and then you came back after Thanksgiving, and that was like review week. We didn't, it
Okay.
was sort of a full dead week, but it was sort of to wrap
Sure.
everything up after your last exam, go over it, get ready for finals.
Yeah. Um,
I didn't
no,
hate
we
it.
don't have any sort of policy on that. I think a lot of professors would cancel. I often canceled because I wanted the week off, quite
I,
frankly. And I figured I made like you came to speak to
Mhm.
Susquehanna, uh, to my upper level students on one night, and I would require my classes to go to those
Mhm.
events when I bring in speakers. And I would tell them part of the deal, you come to this, but because you come to this, then I will give you
Yeah.
this day off. And the students are like, that's a great deal. I will take that every time. And well,
So this was my Penn State policy. I don't do this anymore. I actually changed it this semester. So I got to figure out what my story's going to be. At Penn State, I had evening exams. I said, look, there's 700 of you. It's not
yeah,
reasonable to get all 700 of you in, seated, taking an exam, and then out while other classes are going in and out. So we'll have evening exams so that we have more of a buffer. And then I always told them, we're going to have 3 evening exams. That means I can cancel 3 days. I could give you back 3 days of the
okay,
semester. And one of them was always the Friday before Thanksgiving break. And then the other Fridays, usually like the last Friday, I canceled that one. And then I would
sure.
cancel another one sometime in the middle of the semester.
Yeah, that's not a bad plan at all. Not a bad plan at all.
I'm not doing
Eh,
the evening exams though, so now I got to figure out a new story.
you've got to figure out something else, something else. So it's interesting. I mean, from spring break externalities and impact to internal policy discussion. I guess I would say that's some game theory, right? You're talking about backward induction and a little bit of mechanism design. So how do you set up the classes? Some kind of fascinating econ here. Uh,
Much different than what I think we
yeah,
jumped into this doing.
I'm sure there are other economic impacts that some people are thinking about. We did not look up how much more alcohol is consumed because of spring breakers. I'd be a little bit scared, I think, to look that up.
Yeah. Well, so this is I know that younger generations drink less.
Yep.
I'm curious, like I would assume that that trickles down, that it is a lot for a single
Yeah,
week, but that I have to imagine it's maybe less than it used to be. I don't
that would
know.
make sense. That would make sense, and
I don't know.
that'd
Matt,
be
if
interesting.
you
So
if you well, I mean you're on a sabbatical. You get spring break. Are you any spring break plans? Are you going anywhere?
now my I think I think our kids are coming back actually, not for a full spring break. One's working, and but
Mm.
coming back at the beginning of that. I think everybody's home actually for the Oscars,
Okay.
which I'm not necessarily the biggest Oscars fan. I wouldn't normally watch it, but I do try to watch the movies that are nominated, and then. But having everybody back for that day and a half, there's a bit of an overlap. That will be a lot of fun. I got my wife tickets to New York or to a show, so I'm going to New York next week. So
Great.
by
What are
the
you gonna see?
time this episode drops, I actually think I'll be driving back approximately. So seeing Gypsy with Audra McDonald for sure.
Okay.
That was her Christmas present. Audra McDonald has won the Tony Award in all four major acting categories, and I think she's the only person to ever do that. So it's Best Actress in a Musical, Best Supporting Actress in a Musical, Best Actress in a Play, and Best Supporting Actress in a Play. I think the only person in history to ever do that, and we've never seen her. And then, so we'll see a couple other shows too. So that's a little bit of a mini break. I am doing a little bit for SU, which will be fun. I'm seeing some alums and seeing some students on the Wednesday. So I've got that. I've got kids coming in. I'm gonna, it's been fun to go in and do research. It's been different. I wake up, I do my routine, but then I write and got these projects going on.
You
And
look at our projects and you're like, why is Jadery not responding? And you go, oh yeah, he's not on sabbatical.
yeah,
That's
honestly, I've been so busy with the other stuff, I haven't gone back to
good.
ours that much
Thank
recently.
you.
So
It makes me feel better. It's on my to-do list, and I keep going,
yeah,
oh man, I really got to do this.
no, but it's all good. So well, and your spring break plans are?
Relaxing.
Yeah.
I need it. I need it so bad. I'm gonna try to relax. I might. We're looking at trying to maybe do a little trip to Florida. Mike Kuhn, if you're listening, I do remember you maybe promised me banana ball tickets, so I might
Yeah.
get to see the Savannah Bananas, maybe if Mike remembers.
Very
But
cool.
if not, this is the problem. Is I want to go. He's in Tampa. I want to go for spring training. I want to see spring training. That'd be great. See a little baseball. That'd be great. Some sun would be great.
How many new stadiums could you check off the list?
Not that many. We actually, I went to see Mike over the summer, and we actually, I looked at the entire, like at least the the main teams and the minor league teams. I tried to line them all up, and so I was able to get 3 games in a row of a minor league team, a soccer team, and the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah,
So not that many actually, but my problem is I know that it's spring break, and I don't necessarily want to be in Florida for spring break, and so I'm weighing this sort of this issue of I know that it'll cost me more to fly there because it's spring break.
sure.
I would also really like the sun, and so I have not committed yet, even though that's in,
Okay.
well, by the time people are listening, it's in 2 weeks, so I need to make a decision
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah. But relaxing is good. Relaxing
I'm
is
gonna try
good.
to, I will at least relax most of it.
Any pop culture about spring break that comes to mind?
I don't have spring break for you, but I got pop culture on something related, and
Okay.
we're gonna go into I'm gonna call it the vault, even though it's not old. Ferris Bueller's Day Off has a great opening monologue that is about skipping school in order to enjoy a spring day near the end of the semester. What else could I be doing instead? So
Yeah.
there's a quote in there. This is my ninth sick day of the semester. It's pretty tough coming up with new illnesses.
Yeah.
If I go for 10, I'm probably gonna have to barf up a lung, so I better make this one count. And so he talks about sort of the cost of increasingly, I guess actually this is the 80s. I was wrong, 1986. The cost of skipping school keeps increasing, so he better make sure that the benefit really outweighs it.
Yeah.
So, since we talked about skipping school to go to spring break, I figured if you're going to have a massive spring break party, you might as if you're going to skip the day before spring break, you might as well have a blowout celebration in Cancun instead of just
Yeah, if you are going to have, if you're going to miss, if they're going to miss your excellent class, that's got to be a good, it's got to be good. So I don't have a spring break one, but I'm going to do a shout out to my youngest. My youngest is in a college level economics class as a high school senior, and knows that, of course, I do a lot on trying to tie, with like the YouTube videos, pop culture to economics. And so has been getting into econ, which has been awesome to see,
good,
and sent me,
as they should.
as everybody should. And so she sent a clip from The Devil Wears Prada, which I haven't ever actually seen before, on asking through how this ties to cross price elasticity or price elasticity, right? And it in many ways it really does. It's a scene where they're assembling a dress with a belt and with a jacket. And of course, if the dress increases in popularity and you have to have that belt with the dress, that would mean the cross price there's a the cross price elasticity um, you know would be certainly affected with that, as
Impressive.
the price of the dress would go up, the quantity purchased of the dress would drop, but because they're complements, the quantity purchased of the belt would also drop. So that was, it's always kind of cool to
Impressive.
see. So a big shout out to Nova for giving the pop culture clip I'm throwing out there for today. So,
I have a question not related to Nova.
okay.
Does their teacher know that you're an economist?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So,
It's at SU, and
okay.
it's with it's with Dr. Onofawara, who
Oh,
is
okay,
Dr.
Dr.
Olu, who's absolute superstar
Okay.
professor, and he's actually I work with some great colleagues. I
Yeah.
mean, they're just superstars across the board. But he's actually there was a really cool story that came about him. He is the top cited black economist in economics in the state of Pennsylvania and
Oh, okay.
40th in the country. But to be number one in the state
Yeah.
is like
No, I thought
awesome.
that's why
I mean,
you paused right there, and I was like, really? I was like, that's very impressive. And then you go in Pennsylvania.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean,
It's
like
still impressive. Pennsylvania's a big. Hold on,
big
let me
state. I
back up.
mean, like
I
there's
I diminished that, but I think our listeners need to remember that the state of Pennsylvania does have Penn State. It has UPenn. It has Pitt.
Pitt,
It has
Carnegie
Carnegie
Mellon,
Mellon. Like it has some
um,
very good schools, including
Lehigh, and Bucknell,
Robert
and
Morris University.
yeah, Robert Morris,
Thinking
and
about our friends at Duquesne. There's a lot
yeah,
of universities in
a
Pennsylvania
lot.
that
So
are
I mean, it's
have good schools.
he's an absolute rock star, and he's a great teacher. And
Very
my
cool.
oldest also took Dr. Olu back in the
Okay.
day, and both, so it's
Back in,
shout out. So
as though they're
I
old.
don't know
Kids
that
are
he
not that
knows
old.
yet. I don't know that he knows yet that that Nova's trying to do all the pop culture stuff and tie it together. So I don't know, but this is but it's cool. It's fun to see that.
I
So
bet Dr.
shout out
Olu's
to
nervous. He's like, Matt's gonna find out about anything I do in this class.
oh no. He's he knows he's a star, so it doesn't matter. So
Very
but
cool.
so that's pretty cool. So we'll put that clip up, and a shout out to Nova for the recommendation. So
It's great.
well, how was the
As a reminder, this is a tall one, so
you had the tall one?
don't. Yeah, those of you watching on YouTube, don't mistake my small amount left as though I didn't like it.
Yeah.
That was the second pour, so it's very good.
It's the second pour. Mine was good as usual, but I've had it before, so natural. I knew what I was getting into, and I have one sip left. But well, to everybody, if your spring break is coming up now, enjoy it. If it's not, well, still enjoy it whenever it happens. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers, Matt. Clink, 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 clink.
Click
We
clink.
really need to add that.